So I get up, I look at the black guy, and I said, "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute?" I did it real innocently, like. And the minute he came over there, boom, I hit him with a left and a right. And here I go again, always have to prove myself. Deep inside, I really knew that I wasn't a tough guy, and I was scared to death that people would find out. So I would do everything in my power to put up that front.
Vince Ciacci, Mobshot, My Life and the Mafia, Part 3.
Yeah, hi, my name is Vince Ciacci, and, they say a cat's got 9 lives. Well, I totally surpassed that. When I was young, after my teenage years, I had this desire to become a made guy in the mafia. And this is a journey that caused me a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, but thank God I straightened out my life. This is my story, and, let me talk about when I was up in Ciacci. I want to talk about the yard. The pads are actually property that you have imaginary lines to this property, but if you stand on a piece of property, nobody can come into that property. I mean, especially like if let's say here's how it ran. It was like, I'll explain to you. There was like this pad right by the porch. It was a half-ass pad, and I owned that pad actually, even though I stood on the back wall. And there were good guys there, and half-ass meant they weren't looking for real trouble. They were tough guys, They didn't want no part of the notoriety we had back on the back wall. So then next to that pad, coming around the corner, the first square there is the Puerto Ricans. And they were cool guys. The Puerto Ricans were very diplomatic. They didn't fight with blacks. They didn't fight with whites. They got along with everybody, And then from then you got from the Puerto Rican wall, then you go over to another side, and this is where they had called it a creep pad. These are guys that, they could be rats, but they never could make it, with the guys, especially from the back east guys. And then you got the porch, and then you go straight back there, and here's where you got the good boy pads. There was Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And we covered to the end of the square of the yard, into the next one. Then there's the porch. A guard is over there, and he's watching. And then you go past the guard, and now you got half-ass pads. You got Syracuse, you got Buffalo, and then you go around, and then you got Bronx half-ass. And then there's the porch over here. Again, there's a guard, and then that's where the black pads were. They took up 1/4 of the square there, and they had segregation among themselves. There was like the black guys that were looking for trouble. In fact, they were called Mesopotamia. That's pretty wild shit there, and those are the guys that had the bandanas in their pockets, like they were bad. And those actually were the guys that we would start in with, because we were crazy. We were just nuts. That's all. It was just a violent thing. And then they had another black pad, and this is where these guys weren't, they were just regular guys. But then you had another pad where all the creeps, the black guys, were creeps, and they were afraid of everybody. And these poor guys, they had to pay rent to Mesopotamia to stay in that pad. And I'll tell you what, they were doing some shit there. In the wintertime, it's all freezing. And, they were making like they were harmonizing. They were making a circle. And one of these poor kids was in the middle. And they were literally having sex with the kid. So nobody could see, But we knew what was going on. They actually were fucking these kids. And these kids had a crack in their pants. So they could fuck them right there with their clothes on, And when we heard that, that was even an incentive to kill these motherfuckers. I mean, we really had it out for these guys. I almost felt, to be honest with you, I'm not prejudiced. I got friends, black friends today, but up there it was like you don't talk to them. They don't talk to you. Maybe you could talk to them once in a great while if you know them, if they respect them, but. It was terrible. Everything was segregated up there. I felt like I was down in the South. I mean, you know, that's how bad it was. But see, it wasn't like we were picking on them. They were. It was like everybody was looking for violence. You know, I had fights. I was in riots. I went into their wall with a few other guys, and we ran in there and started. And then the guards, of course, they come off the porch with the batons, and they really give it to you. And then what they do is, after the guards grab you, like let's say there's 20 guys fighting, they put you in the as you're going into the yard. There's the hall there, and they would put you up against the wall. You're standing under the clock. And they make you stand there for maybe an hour or two. We knew what was going to happen because what they do is they'll have a lieutenant or a sergeant, and he would come up to each individual against the wall, and he'd have two guards by his side. And he'd start talking to you, you know, what the fuck, what'd you do? And then you had to watch real close because the minute he did something with his eyes, the guards just beat the shit out of you with those batons. And then after they go down the whole line, I mean, can you imagine? You're standing on the line and you're watching guys getting beat the shit out of, and you know you're coming up on it, you know. So what they do after they beat you up, then they take you up to A3. A3 was up on the roof there. That was the segregation. And they throw you in a strippo cell. A strippo cell is you could wear shorts and a T-shirt, or you could be naked. You know, sometimes if they really wanted to fuck with you, they made you take all your clothes off. So you're in this cell, you're all banged up, and the next day you got to go to court. It's not outside court; it's inside court. And you go into this room. It's an office, and you got. Usually it was Captain Fritz that was holding court, or a Lieutenant Fleischman. He was a real scumbag. Fritz always tried to talk to me. When I was on the coal pile once, he came out there just to talk to me. He says, you know, what the fuck are you doing? What are you going to do? You're going to wind up in this place. You might get killed someday, you know. He said, why don't you straighten out? You look like you're a pretty intelligent kid, and, you know, went in one ear and out the other. So you're in the court, and then they talk about what you did. Okay. All right, Vincent Ciacci, you've been incited in a riot. Okay, that's one charge. And then we could be in there some other. Vince Ciacci, we found out you were gambling. Vince Ciacci, we found out you have contraband in your cell. Vince Ciacci, and it goes on and on. But the most serious one is if you go in there for a riot, you're fucked. And there was one captain up there. His name was Captain Fillet. And he would take a pencil in his hand while he's talking to you. And if he dropped that fucking pencil, you better cover up because those guards were going at you. When we were up there, we learned these toasts. And, you know, it was like a 3 or 4 page thing that we memorized. And in case, like when we would be in strippo, we would just repeat the toast over and over and over again, and not to go out of your mind, because when you're in strippo, you're there and you're looking at 4 walls, you know. So I learned this one toast. It was called Longshoe Sam and Cocaine Smitty. So I'll run it down to you, and you can hear how it sounds, you know. So it's deep in Sonora, where the pot grows tall, where the vultures fly and the scorpions crawl, where the coyotes howl, chill dead man's tones, and rattlesnakes crawl over dead man's bones. It was me and my man, Cocaine Smitty, 2 big-time pimps from New York City. Now, Smitty was clean when he made the scene. He had a pair of shoes that you could hock. He was choked up tight with a white-on-white and a hand-knitted tie you couldn't buy. Now, I was pressed also. I had a Panama brim, I had a dark pair of shades, and I smoked Coronas that were special made. Before this, we stopped at the border and gave them our name, Longshoe Sam and Smitty Cocaine. Pimpin' and hustlin' was our motto as we headed south in our blue Caddy Eldorado. Well, we stopped at Pancho's for a bite to eat. When we dug with the waitress, our knees got weak. Why, a wiggle from her ass could make a dead man come, make an old man feel young. She came to the scene and she says, "What will you have? Tamales or beans?" And Smitty says, "Baby, I'll give you a clue. The best in the house, it seems to be you." He took her in the corner and he started to rap. He says, "Rose, baby, I want you to be mine. I'll buy you your car, your house, your vines." She says, "You ain't shit. I want New York City. For a big-time pimp, you sure sound shitty. I went with a junkie a month ago. He was dirty, he was strung out. He didn't have a dime, but I take him back before I fall for your line." So just then, I moved in for observation. I said, "Step back, jerk, and watch me work." I handed Rose a stick of pot, and then I shot. I said, "Rose, baby, if you play those games by the rules, I'll have you on Broadway taking money from fools." She says, "You don't have to jump. You don't have to shout. Let your money beat your big dick out." While we fucked on the grass around the hill, 8 o'clock next morning, we were fucking still. This here bitch was a real down cool. Next week, she was shooting some pool. She put the 1 in the corner, the 2 in the 3, the 4 in the side. The shit she put on that 6, she couldn't miss the 5. She downed the 7, and when I saw this, I knew that 8 she could never miss. Next was poker. This wasn't my stick. Not because Rose was so damn slick. I rolled my dice. I rolled the 7. I rolled the 11. And as I rose to my glory, I knew my dice would time my story. And she says, "Please, you have won me body and soul. Please don't treat me like the rest of your hoes." For a minute, Smitty didn't dig what he did. He says, "Rose, baby, if I can't have you for my own, I'll shoot your ass boat and head back home." She jumped in front of her man, Longshoe Sam. She says, "Kill me, motherfucker. Your heart ain't as big as you think it might be." Smitty out of fright pulled a bullet and hit Rose in the middle of the head. And when she hit the ground, she was damn near dead. But when Smitty saw what he'd done, he put his foot to the floor and headed for the door. I shot him in the back, in the chest, and in the head. And when he hit the ground, he was damn near dead. I had to take Rose with me back to New York City. Her funeral had to be one of the best. She was the queen of the holes from east to the west. Well, on her fingers, I put diamond rings. I bought her just about everything. On her feet, I put a pair of Cinderella shoes. I even had Count Basie play those St. Louis blues. This here bitch was the slickest you ever did see. She'd make a rich man poor and a poor man steal, and you would eat her pussy for your last meal. But let it be known throughout the land, Rose died protecting her man, the king of the hustlers, Longshoe Sam. I brought up the subject about the black guys, that were having sex with and these guys weren't even see, they had a special division for gay kids, and some of them actually looked like girls, And I'll never forget it. We're on the back wall, and I'm with my boy Charlie Marini. Charlie was a real good-looking Italian kid, and he wasn't gay, but he was looking at this kid walking, tracking it. And this kid, real good-looking kid, he looked like Kim Novak, and Charlie was crazy about this kid, but he never did no one. He used to say to me, "Hey, Vince, oh, yeah, in those days I was called Nicky, by the way. Nicky, look at that fucking..." I said, "Charlie," any way you look at this fucking thing, this kid's got a dick in between his legs." And like it went right over his head. But, he never did anything with the kid. But I was really amazed that I said to myself, fuck, we're going home in 3 years. You're going home in 5 months, But that's some of the guys up there. They were doing good boys. There were a couple of good boys up there that were, I hate to tell you, they were lovers. They were. See, up there you have cells and you have dorms, and they were on the piggery. These two guys, they were fearless. These guys. I mean, these guys had a rep. They tear your heart out, but yet they were fooling around with each other, whatever, But they had a division for the gay kids. It was called C2. Boy, I got a good memory. C2. And they would put all these gay kids in there. It was a whole division of gay kids. And I remember when I was working in the kitchen, I was on the chow line sometimes, meaning when everybody comes by, you put food on their plate, it goes from guy to guy, and they'd come in, and there was this one little black kid. I swear to God, I thought it was a broad, and he's fluttering his eyes at me, and I would look at him. I said, "Get the fuck out of here!" I was telling him, and I couldn't picture it. This is one thing I couldn't picture, and it's sad to say there were a lot of guys, good people. In fact, I don't know what it was, but they got involved in them, and up there I was, I had to memorize all these phone numbers because I wanted. See, that's what actually got me involved. My starting period of being associated with mob guys. Before I went to Ciacci, I mean, we were tough. I was in a gang, but it wasn't mafia stuff. It was just we were tough kids, always fighting. So I get all these phone numbers, because I want to look these guys up. In fact, they were telling me, go see my uncle, go see, you're a stand-up guy, you can maybe make some money. So I memorized all these guys and who was an armed robber, who was a safe cracker, who was this. And, I got Charlie's number. Charlie was my number one guy, so, when Charlie went home way before I did. But when I hit the streets, first guy I called was Charlie. And we called, hey, come over here to Brooklyn, Bay Ridge. We're going to go out tonight. We're going to celebrate. And so we went out together and we started talking. And the next thing you know, me and Charlie were making some money. We were cutting up some good money. We were pulling robberies and all kinds of shit. And I remember one night, and this is probably one of the reasons why, I have this book out, Almost the Wise Guy, but this is probably one of the reasons why I didn't get made, which God bless for me, because, once you're in, you don't get out. But I'm with Charlie, right? We were with these two, where were we? We were in this club called the Parakeet Club out in Brooklyn. And he's all dressed up. We're all dressed up. I mean, with silk suits and everything, When I came out of the joint, I started dressing like a wise guy because all these guys, the way they dress, Italian knits and everything. So we're all dressed up. We were with these two beautiful girls. I mean, hot. And we were celebrating. We had just put down a score. We made some good money. And all of a sudden, I'm drinking, and something snapped in my head. And I said to myself, what the fuck, Charlie? Charlie's a fag. I'm going, Charlie was no fag, but, in my head, I remembered the incident in Ciacci. So I take him outside. I said, Charlie, I want to talk to you. He said, what the fuck? What with these guys? I said, Charlie, it's important. So we went outside, and I remember looking at him, and I said, you know what, Charlie? I think you're a fag. And I hit him with a left hook. His eye came out. Now, Charlie was a lot tougher than I was, and he could have killed me. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't hit me. He grabbed me. He threw me up against the wall. He said, are you out of your fucking mind? He said, are you crazy or what? And then I snapped to it. I said, Charlie, I'm sorry. He says, you know what? He says, you ever fucking pull this shit on me again? He says, I'll shoot you, you bastard. He would have, too. Anyway, that was the deal with Charlie Marini. And, after it happened, I felt so bad because I love this kid. I mean, I remember being in the joint with this kid. If he would go up on a black guy, I'd go up on one too, just so we could both be in the hole together. I mean, that's fucking insanity, but that's how close we were. If you fuck up there, not necessarily you go to the hole. But they'll put you in a special division where you can't have any you can't see any movies. It's a division that you just lose your privileges. But they had the yard, and I was out in the yard with this kid, Mikey Ruggiero. In fact, Mikey was a very good friend of mine, and his father was, in fact, his uncle was a made guy, and Mikey was a pretty cool guy. We're sitting in the yard, and here I go again. Always have to prove myself. The reason I did that, is because deep inside I really knew that I wasn't a tough guy, and I was scared to death that people would find out. So I would do everything in my power to put up that front. And in this yard, it was segregated even there, but there were no pads. But the black guys were all on one side, and everybody's. And me and Mikey, we only two good boys, and that were there, so we're sitting by ourselves. And I could swear this black guy was looking at me, and I said to Mikey, I said, is this fucking William? He's looking at us. He said, nah, Nicky, forget about it. No, this cocksucker's looking. So I get up, and I look at the black guy, and I said, excuse me, can I talk to you for a minute? I did it real innocently, like. And the minute he came over there, boom, I hit him with a left and a right. But he was a tough cocksucker, this guy. And he came back, and he split my lip open, and we were going at it. I mean, because there's dust in this yard, and the fucking dust was coming up. That's how much we were fighting, And then from there, they threw me back in the hole. I didn't catch an assign on that one, but I mean, the guards used to make fun of me. They see up there, if you have money, if you're, it's like you're out in the street, you're a millionaire, you live in a mansion. If you're rich with money in the joint, meaning cigarettes, you fix up your cell. You have paintings, I had oil paintings, and we used bandanas as tables for our tables, and I'd fix up my cell beautiful. And the guard would come by, and he said, what the fuck? He says, you spend all this time fixing your cell nice. He says, and by next week you'll be in Strippo again. You have to take everything down, put it in your fucking in your blanket like Santa Claus. You come back to a cell that's empty, and you're probably going to get sent to a different division. And and I used to look at him and say, yeah, right. And he was right, because I was always in trouble. I was always looking for trouble, and. They all had nicknames, these guards. Well, one guy was a sergeant. He was an older guy, and they called him Joe Quick, because this motherfucker could throw shots at you. We wouldn't even see them coming. Then there was Pete the Rider, Cameron. He was he was the one that was always up in A3. He was the one that used to come by my cell to check and see if I was rifting to other guys. And he rolled in on me a couple of times. Then there was Frank Mention. He had this twitch, and what we used to do. I remember my friend Graveyard. He used to imitate these guards, and we would fucking die laughing. I mean, he was so good at it, and he was doing about Mention. Mention used to have these nervous twitches, and he's doing these twitches, and I tell you the truth, we're dying. And he was a funny fucking guy. This kid, he was. But most of them up there was like. Sergeant Fleischman, he was a scumbag right from the gate. And what else was up there? Oh, Roddy. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm in the church, right? See, if they catch you talking in line, everything is run like the military up there. You march to the mess hall, and you double time, you stop, and your feet going up and down like in the army, And I'll never forget it. I was in church. We used to go to church every Sunday, and I'm next to one of my boys, and I'm whispering to him, he's whispering to me. Well, anyway, we get out of the church, and we're in single file line, and as we're walking out of the church, this motherfucker, his name was Roddy, Mr. Roddy. He was in charge of the piggery. See, let me explain something to you up there. The food up there was basically raised up there. They had a dairy, they had a piggery, everything, all the fruits were raised up there, the vegetables was up there, and Roddy had the piggery. And Roddy was about 5'5", and he reminded me of a sumo wrestler. You know how the way they walk, they got that. This was Roddy. All of a sudden, he grabs me, and he hits me. Smacks me in the face with this fucking punch and knocks me into the fucking wall. And, I was so stupid. I would stand up, and I'd catch a beating. Instead of covering up, I'd let them hit me in the face. I was a bullshit tough guy, right? He hit me so hard. I thought I was in a coma. He said, you little cocksucker. He said, you don't talk when you're in church. Bam, bam. He had this methodic way of hitting you. Like he'd have his hands to the side. He'd bring up one hand, then he'd bring up the other hand. He was like a fucking robot, this guy. But man, could he hurt. So that was a fucking beating I caught. That was a bad one too. But that's what they did up there. There were a couple of good guys up there. but most of them were real scumbags. These were guys probably that were bullied when they were kids, or they were real redneck motherfuckers, and I'll tell you a funny story. When we got out of the joint, we got together, me and Graveyard and Charlie Marini, Blackie Russo, well, a few of us, and we decided it was the World's Fair, Flushing Meadows, 1963, and we went there. There was 5 of us. We had it all planned. If we were going to see any of because we heard that the guards were coming down there to see the World's Fair, so we went up there with the intention of grabbing these motherfuckers, throwing them in the trunk of the car, and then torturing them. And then after that, getting rid of them. So we go to this fucking World's Fair. And who's there? Sergeant Austin. I love this guy. He loved us Italian guys because we had balls. He says, well, he says, I know why you boys are here. He says, I hope everything works out real good for you, because he hated them scumbags. A lot of the guards, the good ones, they hated those other guys because they knew they were sadistic bastards. So we laughed. And you want to know something? That one of the motherfuckers showed up at this fucking World's Fair, which maybe is good, because I hate to tell you what we were going to do to these guys, because they made life miserable for us up there, I mean, I'm going, it's ridiculous. I'm going in the fucking hole all the time. I'm fighting all the time. I mean, I could actually say that I was incorrigible, because they beat me. They did everything they could. They couldn't touch me. I was that fucking nuts. But I'm up in I remember now, I'm up in A3. I'm on a sign. The kid that comes up, he comes up with the food. So he comes up and he managed to get a wire to me. And the wire is, they let you know what's happening, or if something's serious, So he gave me this wire. He says when you get out of a sign, he says, you're going back to population, but you're going into the kitchen. And he says, you know well what happens in the kitchen. And you keep going where you're going. He says, you're never going to leave this fucking place alive. Now, when I heard that, I literally was fucking petrified. Literally petrified, because I knew of some guys that were in the kitchen, and they told this guy, his name was Ringwood. He was a sadistic, fucking red-faced. He must have been some alcoholic with a face that red, And what happened is, if you fuck up in the kitchen, you play your shit in the kitchen, they take you into his office, and that's it. Lights out. So when I got ready to get out there, and I wound up in the kitchen, a whole life experience happened in that kitchen. Something that changed my life forever.
Mobshot, the podcast, is courtesy of Blackstone Publishing. Mobshot, the audiobook by Vince Ciacci, available for purchase wherever audiobooks are sold, including Amazon.com.